What is going on, Jose? How you doing, brother?
Doing fantastic. What about you?
Doing well. I was a little concerned because when we first hopped serious, you're like, so I think it's official. Yeah, we are definitely in a transitioning market. Would you agree with that?
100%.
100%. And tell me, because you're on track. We were talking before we got started. You're on track to do 150 deals this year, right?
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
buddy. He's smiling. I told him like it's not 200, but like it's good. I mean, it's pretty good.
It's all right, right? A decent number.
It's remarkable, man, considering that what's happening in your marketplace. So, um, share with the audience like how not you think, that the market is transitioning.
Um, so one, listings are sitting on the market for longer.
So days on
Two,
market is increasing.
days on markets is increasing. Two, um, the comps aren't being supported by the current prices, meaning like if you're going based on comps from 6 months ago and you're pricing a property, even if the property is better or identical, very likely it's selling for less than whatever the comps are or were at that time. So basically, I know it's transitioning because a lot of times you can base what you price a property for based on comps. It's challenging to do it if you go past 6 months. It's more you're doing it based on pendings, meaning like properties that are pendings or even actives right now in the marketplace. And then there is friction. I know that is a sign because sellers aren't getting what they want, and when they don't get what they want, they throw tantrums, and buyers are coming in more conservatively. And even when we're in escrow, we're getting asked for larger price reductions. Like we're talking about like $20,000 reductions,
For no real
15,000.
reason, right? Other than just like they can.
Well, in one case, they asked for $150,000 on a $3 million property, and I had to look at the seller and basically tell him, "Look, I know it's not ideal, but I don't believe I can get you any better if we went back on the marketplace because of this, this, and this. Even though it's not what you want, you may be better off just taking it." And sure enough, there's a property right next door that's a little bit better condition, priced a little bit higher than what we were in escrow at, and they're sitting on the marketplace.
So that was good
And they're
guidance. Now,
and they're directly next door to that property.
yeah. So that was really good guidance. Now, you're also, because I know we've had conversations with it, and I'm speaking to agents all across the country on a regular basis. The other thing that you're seeing, and I know that others are seeing in the stats, like market kind of
Oh,
data,
100%.
which is like supply and demand. So, supply, you can look at inventory,
Mhm.
supply meaning the amount of homes that are on the market for sale, and inventory. And I know it's not like, this broad kind of everywhere this is the case, because some places it's more than others, and some kind of pockets of the marketplace it's more than others in your specific geographic area. As a whole, though, what you're seeing is across the board, inventory is creeping up, and in some instances going up dramatically year over year. Is that right?
And I would encourage agents to go back because I don't think I looked at I looked at it briefly, maybe like 30 to 45 days ago, where I received a message from one of my virtual assistants that just said, "Hey, look, last year inventory was this year it's that." I ignored it. I was like, "Okay, whatever." But
Mm.
then when I actually went back and like looked at them, I was like, "Oh man, like this is across the board in most of the marketplaces in Ventura County where inventory has gone up in a lot of cases by like 33%, and demand has either remained flat or in some cases it's even come down."
Hmm.
So you're basically like supply's going up and demand is going down. So a key question that I learned how to ask was just like, "Look, you tell me, like, uh, inventory was X last year, right now it's Y, demand was X, now it's Y. When inventory goes up and demand goes down, what typically happens to prices in those scenarios?"
And then be quiet. Yeah. So the way that we're determining and making this like definitive statement, right? Because I love this quote, and I think it's true. Not I think, I know it's true. Leaders don't panic, they pivot.
Yeah.
So what we mean by that is that marketplaces dictate strategy. I think our tendency, I know our tendency as like operators is like, hey, I found something that works. That means it's going to work all the time. No, that is a quirk
No.
in thinking. It's called resulting. And it's not accurate because environments change and environments dictate strategies, right? So the way that we're able to tell that environments are changing is by monitoring simple things like supply and demand. What's happening with inventory year over year? Is it staying the same? Is it going up? Is it going down? Now, you mentioned to me, like some instances it's 33%. In some marketplaces, it's in like sub pockets in your market is 50% increase year.
Yeah, I don't know if I was doing the math right in that scenario. Um, and I haven't done the math. I'm just kind of like, so I'll give you an example. Inventory in our market as a whole has gone up from 1100 to 1800. So that's a 700 difference. So let me see. I think it's 33%. Let me see. 700 divided by 1983. It comes out, yeah, 35%. So I think it's 35%, bro. I don't think I was doing the math right whenever I was saying that. I think it's somewhere between 35% range. And that's what we're noticing, that inventory is going up and then demand is going flat. Now, here's a scary part as well, too, for some of the people watching this or some of the viewers watching this. I look back for demand and I look back like, okay, like let's go back to the last time that we had this level of demand. And the last time in some cases that I found this level of demand in summer, not the winter, because we're selling the amount of homes right now that in some cases you sell in the winter, but usually the summer in our market has a lot more. The last time that I saw this was 2007 and 2008, where we had this amount of homes selling in the summer. So
Yo,
what I was saying it
you're selling all these homes. You got to send me money to pay my internet bill. You know what I mean? So yeah, like by looking at supply and demand, you can see very clearly. And this is the hard part, guys. Independent of what you're hearing on the television, independent of what you're seeing on social media, like you have to keep in mind that my experience has been, and being in this business for like 20 years, it took kind of the media a while, like months, 6 months, 8 months, like 6 months, let's say, to recognize like, oh, this is like changing. And it took consumers like a year to really see that it changed, right? Every time I've been involved in like a market transition. And you have to equip yourself with what's true, right? Because these platforms, TV, whatever, like media, they're all designed to either piss you off or scare you. So they oftentimes sensationalize and all the other stuff, but you need to get to like what's true. You need an accurate assessment in order to produce a good outcome. And people are looking to you as an agent for guidance as far as strategy is concerned, as far as like what's happening in the marketplace. So by staying up to date with supply and demand, you can get a clear picture. Now, being that, Jose, you have seen, and we started to see, because we were talking about this like, 6 months ago, right? And was like, yo, we need to start talking about price reductions and the pricing portion listing presentation and presenting offers that come in less than the asking price. Dude, we've been talking about that for like almost 3 months now.
And now it's coming to the surface.
Yeah. Well, now, because,
Now
people aren't doing enough volume that they're recognizing that that's what's happening. But now in the handful of deals that they're doing, they're like, holy smokes, this is what's happening. Or they had a bottleneck. So they end up with like 10 listings, nothing selling. And then they say things like, oh, well, the marketplace isn't good. I'm like, no, you haven't changed your tactics. The environment's changed. You haven't pivoted, right? So what they end up doing is panicking and thinking, oh, I need to go get a job, when instead they should be pivoting strategically, right? So now that we've kind of, let's say, solidified and determined, hey, marketplace is in transition. We don't know where it's going to go. We make directional bets with a high degree of probability. This is the direction it's heading in. When you see inventory rising, you see demand falling, and you see direct experience from the marketplace, like Jose's saying. He's seeing, hey, we got to get price reductions, get offers. Hey, I'm seeing buyers be more aggressive in negotiating, which means that things are changing. Hey, I'm seeing offers come in less than the asking price. Now we need to pivot. in terms of strategy. And the pivot has to do with it begins at the listing presentation. And you've mentioned, Jose, which we've been talking about and we've been teaching to everybody, is augmenting that presentation by getting really good at framing the conversation before you give them the data. And the way you've been doing that and the way we've been teaching others to do it is by presenting some stats. So maybe like talk to the audience or walk them through like specifically how you've augmented your approach.
Yeah, so I actually started bringing up market stats because these are things that I started hearing or I'm hearing at the listing presentations right now. What I'm hearing is, oh, like I'm hearing more of like, oh, well, that seller like undersold their property, or like a lot of sellers undersold their property. And the question is, okay, like what if I told you that they didn't actually undersell it, and it's more a reflection of where the marketplace is at this time, at this present time right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're saying that they'll look at that listing like, I don't know why that seller must have been like really in a hurry or sold it. Now, I was very vividly having a conversation with somebody yesterday who was an expired, and I'm like, what if I told you that it wasn't? I'm like, have you noticed that properties are selling for less than what you would have thought they would have sold maybe like 6 months ago? And he's like, yeah, like, to be honest, I was looking at properties. I'm like, I can't believe that they sold at that price. I'm like, do you ever ask yourself why that is happening?
That's so good, bro.
Meaning if that's like a one-off type of situation,
Yeah.
or if there's something bigger happening. He's like, well, yeah, I was kind of wondering. I'm like, can I share with you some things that are happening in the marketplace right now that I think will help you understand
Oh,
just
it's so
market
good.
dynamics as a whole?
Well, and notice the approach there. So instead of telling somebody, hey, the marketplace is shifting, it's changing, it's not the way that it was before, instead you asked a series of 2 to 3 questions that
To
now he's
to
way
set it
more
up, basically.
set it up. And now
I've
he's
set it up.
and now he's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. It's like, well, my experience is that everybody has an opinion. And anybody who suggests that they have a crystal ball and they can tell you emphatically what's going to happen, I mean, they're not being honest, and you should probably run in the other direction. I'm not pretending to have a crystal ball. At the same time, my experience is when we look at data, the numbers don't lie and they paint a picture. What they do is they give us a direction, right? And my experience is that once I understand that data and the picture that it's painting and the direction, it's helpful for me because then I can make decisions in accordance with that, right? And that'll increase the chances that I'll get the outcomes that I want. So let's take a look at some of this information. So and I believe in doing so, we'll see the reason why that's happening, what we just described, and we can see direction. And then from there, we'll have some options at our disposal. And whatever you decide, I'll support you. Okay. And they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, cool. And then you go over supply and demand and this and that. And you know what I mean? And then you ask questions. So based on this information, anything's possible. At the same time, 2 questions I have for you. One, are you beginning to see why homes are selling for a little bit less than what they were 6 months ago? He'll be like, yeah, good. And second question, anything's possible. Question is, what's more probable? Does it seem more probable that in the next 30, 60, 90, 120 days, the amount that you can get for this property will go up substantially? Or does it seem more probable in light of the data we've just reviewed with inventory climbing by 33%, demand staying the same, and with what we've seen happening with other homes, that if we wait, we'd actually potentially have to get less money, and then shut up. And they'll tell you. But this is how like when you're framing that conversation, I believe that you're having that conversation, like you're going over those stats before you even get into the market analysis, correct? And that's how you've changed the approach, because that's what we're sharing with people what to do.
In some cases, I'm doing it before, and in some
Yeah.
cases, I'm doing it as like
And how
halfway
do you
through the
determine which
analysis.
one? Because I know like how I do it, but like how do you do it?
To be honest, I haven't really thought about how. I think it just depends what the comps support. Meaning,
I think it's
but,
partly that. It's like what comes up for me. It's partly what the comp support. It's partly what I gathered from the prequel.
yeah,
And it's partly how kind of adamant they were, or you know what I mean? Like the kind of friction that was presented around price.
yeah.
right? So I think with all of those factors, so in other words, like if you go in and when you ask them, like, hey, um, my goal and objective is to help you to net as much as you possibly can. You strike me to be someone who's pretty savvy. I'm sure you've gone online, looked at some of these estimates of value. Did you have an idea at all of realistically what you were thinking in terms of price?
Yeah, so it
When you
has a
asked
lot to
that,
do with it. And then
yeah,
in some cases, I'm not even going over the stats. Just like I had a presentation where the seller's like, "Yeah, I want 680." And at 680, it's a steal for the property. I mean, it's
yeah,
a
like there's
great
no reason to
price.
even have the conversation.
There's no reason. So, and this is why I like in some cases I tell people there's certain things that are situational in the listing presentation that you only do when the situation requires it, and there's certain things that you don't have to do at the listing presentation. And market stats, it's one of those things that is situational, just depending on whatever the client's expectations are and where is the marketplace at right now, basically. And
Yeah, and
also,
the
like,
general,
yeah,
yeah, I think the general thing that we want everybody to get clear on is that one, marketplace is in transition for sure, right? Two, you have to be cognizant of that and be augmenting your approach. Augmenting the approach in pre-qual, making sure that people are 8, 9s, and 10s. I would propose even 9s and 10s because in this environment, if they're not highly motivated, they're not going to do what's necessary to get it sold, which is lower the price. Second thing you got to augment is how you're presenting price, getting really good at managing that frame. So if you're on a pre-qual and somebody tells you, yeah, I want 650, and you're like, that's a steal. There's no reason for me to kind of go into that framing conversation. But if there's
zero.
somebody that's like, yo, I don't want to give it away and I'm not going to give it away, and my neighbor I know sold 6 months ago for this, then yeah, with a high degree of probability, I should have that conversation before set that frame really clearly before we get into the pricing conversation.
100%. And even with that expired, I had it over the phone with them. I'm like, look, like, have you noticed why, like, some of your neighbors, like, have you seen what some of your neighbors have sold and asked yourself, like, why? Like, why do they sell at that price? Or that seems awfully low, like, for the features and benefits that they're having. And he's like, yeah. Yeah. I even asked at a presentation, I asked the homeowner because the property right next door is sitting next to him and it's on the market. I'm like, have you wondered why, like, or have you asked yourself this question? Like, why is my neighbor's property sitting when I would have thought that it would have sold by now? And he's like, I'm wondering the same thing. I'm like, what if I told you that there's certain market conditions that are playing a factor into that? And by you understanding these market conditions, you can actually position yourself in a better position to actually be able to sell the property. And he's like, well, that would be amazing. So even with the guy, like, so what I'm kind of going over, and this is where I think that it's very important for agents to go back for their market stats instead of listening to the news. And his property was in Fillmore, and in Fillmore, the inventory hasn't gone up like crazy. And I said that to him. I'm like, look, it hasn't reflected in Fillmore yet, but look at what's going on in some of the other cities around and look at what's going on in the market as a whole. So for some markets, it takes a little bit longer to transition, basically. Um, for some markets, it takes a little bit longer to transition. So in Ventura County, we've had 1,100 homes last year around this time. Right now, we have 1,900 homes, 35% increase in the number of homes available.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that wouldn't be a problem, Aaron, if demand increased by the same amount. Meaning, like, more inventory is not a problem if demand goes up. But look at what's happened to inventory. Inventory last year around this time, 450 homes. Right now, 455 homes. Literally, demand has stayed flat. So let me ask you this. If you have 35% more homes for sale and demand has virtually remained flat, meaning not improved at all, what do you think typically happens to prices in those scenarios?
Shutting up. And then they're going to be like, well, yeah, I guess they go down. So it sounds like you're beginning to realize, you're beginning to
Why?
see why homes now in this market, like currently, because price is a snapshot in time, are selling for less than what they were 6 months ago. Does that make sense to you? Well, yeah,
It
I
does.
guess that makes sense. But I'm not going to give it away. Great. I'm not here to help you to give it away. I'm not in the business of giving away homes. We're not going to start with yours. So what I'd like to do is just ask you a couple. And by the way, we're on the same team because the more we help you sell it for, the more we get compensated. So I want you to sell it for as much as possible. So let me ask you some questions just to ensure that I'm clear on your motive for selling, why you want to do it, and why it's important to you, so we can determine the best option for you. And whatever you decide is okay. Fair enough? Yeah. So my first question is the home's lovely. It's in a great geographic area. Refresh my memory, like specifically, how would your life improve in some way if you sold it? What would be the benefit to you personally? And be quiet. And let's say that you knew that through no fault of your own or mine, that just because of a transitioning market, if you made a decision to wait, you would have to wait for an extended period of time, maybe 12, 24, 36 months before you could get the price that you felt more comfortable with. Would that be okay with you? Is it an option for you to rent the home and still move? Is it an option for you to keep it as a secondary home? Is it an option for you to stay put and make the best of it? So you get clarity around that, right? And then let's say they decide like, no, we're going to sell it. Okay. So being that you've decided that what's in your best interest is to get it sold. In terms of how we position it price-wise, we have a couple options at our disposal. And I'm going to review them with you with the goal and objective of you ultimately making the decision that you feel is best for you and your family on which one would serve you best. And whatever you decide is okay. Fair? Fair. So the first option that we have at our disposal is we can do what a lot of your neighbors have been doing, which is resist what's happening in the marketplace and position the property higher. Perhaps what homes were selling for 6 months ago. You know what the great news about that, Jose, is? What's that? The neighbors have done us a gigantic favor. They've already tested the market for us, and it's not working for them. So in other words, here's one that we agreed is a model match, size, square footage, all that, of the one that sold 6 months ago for $650. They're asking $650. And do you see that DOM there? You know what that stands for? What's that? Days on market. How long have they been on the market? 75 days, and they haven't sold it yet. Now, let me ask you, Jose, what do you think? And watch me. Watch, you ready? Subtly, what do you think the marketplace is telling them about their price and product? And just be quiet. It's uncomfortable, but he'll be like, well, I guess that's too high. I agree.
You're shaking your head no very subtly.
Very subtly. Not like, but I'm like, what do you think the buying public is telling them about their price and product? We are observing everything at all times. We just don't recognize it. So when I give you this subtle, have you ever asked somebody a question and they don't know the answer, but they're almost looking to you for like, can you give me a clue or something?
Yeah.
Can you give me some guidance? So you're just like, yeah, what do you think the buying public is telling them about their price and product? And they're like, well, I guess it's not working. That's right. And we can learn from that data. It's very helpful and useful. Now, the other issue with that strategy is you see it took 75 days. They still don't have a contract yet. Let me ask you this. What would happen on the outside chance if we were still sitting here 75, 100, 125 days from now and it wasn't sold? What would that mean for you and your family? Quiet. Man, that wouldn't be good. Okay. So that's something to consider with regards to that strategy. The second strategy and approach is we can position the property in alignment with where the market not only is, where it's going. Because remember, price is a snapshot in time. And by doing that, what I mean is we would position it a little bit less than what has sold and closed most recently. And even though that may seem counterintuitive, Jose, what ends up happening is if in doing so, that's a wonderful, like the best value on the market right now in Camarillo, like what do you think is going to happen in the first week? We're going to get
lots of activity.
Yeah, lots of activities and offers, perhaps more than one. And who usually wins when you have more than one offer on the table, the seller or the buyer?
Seller.
Yeah. And why is that?
Competition.
That's right. So you end up with the best terms and conditions, right? So what ends up coming to the surface is the absolute most that somebody's willing to pay. Because as you know, I do not need to tell you what something's worth is what somebody's willing to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you decide is okay. My question to you is based on what you're looking to accomplish or why, in light of this data and information that we see clearly the direction that the marketplace is going in. And now we understand why those homes are sitting on the market and not selling versus the ones that sold 6 months ago. And based on the time frame you'd like to make this happen in, which one of these two pricing strategies do you think would serve you best and help you to get the most in the most reasonable amount of time?
Yeah.
And then be quiet. But you have to be like, bro, you have to be a tactician with that. You have to be like, what? Because I want everybody to be clear. I know you know this because of the volume that you're doing. This is if you think as an agent, you could ignore what me and Jose are saying right now, ignore it at your own peril. I'm telling you, bro, if you do not get really, really good at this, it'll be, I got to go get a job. Like that's what it's going to be because you won't be able to move inventory.
Well, there's agents that are getting jobs already.
Right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had in the last 60 days, I've had 4 calls with agents, some with tears, some not, about having to go get a job. That's not hyperbole, like, it's true.
I got a text message from a client, and it was a reel, and it said, this is what's happening in the real estate market right now. And it talked about the amount of sales in
Mm.
comparison to like 2008, 2009, how it's like half of the amount of sales at that time. He's like, if you've got an agent, if your agent's killing it in this market, he's a gangster.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
the client sent it to me.
That's
I was
good,
like,
that's
thanks, man.
thanks for noticing. Well, I told, I was on the group call we do for the agents in the organization. I, told them, I'm like, "Guys, I might be strange. When it gets difficult, bro, I get excited, bro. I get so amped because when everything's going great, you don't like everybody looks like they know what they're doing and that they're a gangster.
Yeah.
When things are difficult, it's only in dark does lightness become very, very apparent and does it shine brilliantly. So for me, I mean, my natural tendency, my makeup is, being very motivated by significance. Like I get so excited when things get difficult because I'm like, oh, this is my time to shine. Right. Um, because there's very little resistance. Like, everybody just kind of folds sort of thing. So yeah, I think the key takeaway here is again, I know 7 times said is once heard. We may sound repetitive. We're saying the same thing over and over again. I just know, having been in a leadership position for like, a while, that it's usually not until people start to experience pain do they start to pay attention. But my hope, my wish, my prayer for agents out there is that they listen before they start to experience pain.
Well, then I think too, like if you resist it long enough, eventually things go back to like a flat or market where it's not increasing or decreasing. So, but by that time, I mean, you've already put yourself very likely in a hole, meaning like you've depleted a lot of your savings, or you've had to go get another job because you weren't bringing in income at that point, you know? So it's like
That's right. So
either
don't like,
resist it or adapt, basically, and I think that's the
yes,
main thing in real estate is just adaptation,
yeah. And
constant.
yeah, and I think the tendency is when things are difficult or messy or hard, the human tendency is to avoid them. But I promise you this, if you avoid something when it's a small issue, it's guaranteeing that it's going to become a big one.
Yeah.
Guaranteeing. So if you know in your being, bro, I am uncomfortable having these pricing conversations. Hey, I find myself arguing with people. Hey, I'm unable to help people to self-discover that they need to get, their expectation isn't in alignment with where the market is right now. Hey, I have a hard time politely confronting people. Hey, I'm getting offers and people aren't accepting them. Then you're getting feedback from the market. The market is telling you something. And you have to make a decision either to deal with it. And what deal with it looks like is you watch the videos that we post, you hop on the free, because there's no shortage, dude. Hey, you know what this is for me and Jose? This is our public service. We give you $1 million worth of game for free. There's no shortage of information. We also do a live role play. It's a public service. It's free. You guys can hop on and ask us whatever you want. Right? We have role play
Mhm.
groups. You can hop in. Like we got script. We got all this stuff. So like there's no shortage. You just have to make a decision. And the thing that I think that I really want to like get clear with as well, from like a mindset perspective, I think everybody's wishing that it was easier. But the longer that you wish that the longer that you stay in that mental map of I wish it was easier, the longer it'll take for you to actually deal with what's happening.
Reality. Yeah.
Instead, it should be, which is the old famous Jim Rohn quote, which is don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills. Go acquire the skills. Because if me and Jose can do it, you can do it. Trust me, you guys don't know. Jose's a striking young lad now, and he sells all these homes. When I first met him, that was not the case.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Like he was having a hard time. It took him 6 months to sell his first home. Right. When I met him, he was going on 100 listing presentations, taking 20 listings. Bro, that's wild. Most people would quit. Right. So he learned how to do this. And you can too. You just got to put it like A, recognize this is what needs to happen. B, do something about it.
Yeah, 100%.
Good. Now, tell me this as far as like with the time that we have left, because you're mentioning like negotiations are starting to change. So talk a little bit about, I think you did briefly, like, yeah, I'm noticing like buyers are like asking for a lot of stuff. So how are you? Because I know what I would do during that transition. I would start to, as a um, pivot, I would start to prep and manage seller expectations. So even though it's on an as is contract, because we would request all offers be written on an as is contract, I need you to be clear, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner. That means that they still have the right to do an inspection and they still may ask us for something.
I think for us, it depends on the situation because this is even what's happening right now. Like, let's say that you're accepting an offer that's like $20,000 less, and they're already like hammering and
Oh,
hammering.
hamming and hawing. And you got to like, just to get them there, right?
Or it's like almost like, hey, I'm not going a penny below that. It's like, okay, just getting them to that point and then dealing with that later on, like kicking the bucket down the road.
Yeah. And the way that I would like, just like
slightly sprinkle it
like
in there.
Ever like think about like salt, like just like like right on the top, is I would say like, yeah, I understand completely. And I just want to manage the expectation for you, right? Which is that we did request that it be on an as-is contract. And what that means is that they do have the right to do an inspection. They still may even ask us for something. Now, if they do, we'll have a couple of options at our disposal. One is we can flat out say no. Two, perhaps we decide to come to a meeting of the minds in some way. At the same time, I just wanted you to be clear and what to expect moving forward, and then be quiet.
Yeah.
So it's just like I'm not going to like, you're going to have to come. Nope. Just like, whoop, here it is. So, you're probably going to have to deal with it. We'll deal with it later.
I'll say something along the lines in some cases, be like, look, like, even though we did communicate to the agent that it's an as-is sale, just so you know, they're still entitled to do their inspections.
Yes.
And during their inspection period, they'll have three options. Either A, they can request something, either some repairs or a credit, and then you have the option of either accepting, rejecting, or countering that back. But just so you know that that just because we mentioned to them or we wrote on the contract that it's an as is, that doesn't mean that they're not entitled to do their own inspections on the property.
That's right. And then be quiet. So you're doing the same thing I am. We're just maybe a little different, but like I'm ever so slight. I'm not going to be like, hey, it's time to do this, but like, boom. And then when they do come back and in fact do ask for a $20,000 credit, now that's a whole conversation. So like, I'm going through the edits. Well, thank you for doing that, by the way, on the book and stuff. And I'm at a part where we're talking about like negotiating. And what I was talking about, which pops up for me right now, is I don't think what agents recognize is there's multiple presentations that happen in a negotiation. So you're presenting to the seller and perhaps their significant other.
And the agent.
There's multiple presentations, right? So when let's say they come back and they ask, or before, let's say when we accept the offer, hey, great news is we have a fully executed agreement. I just want to call and let you know. And I just wanted to manage the expectation. I have a personal assistant on my team. Her name is Donna. She's our transaction coordinator. She's processed like 2,000 transactions with us. She's my assistant, which will make her your assistant to the transaction. She'll be the one that's coordinating inspections, appraisals, things of that nature. I'm always available to you, but she'll be the point of contact moving forward. They're like, okay. And I also, just kind of want to manage the expectation. I know our job is to put this together. It's not to keep it apart. And I'm aware it came in on an as-is contract. I'm also aware that it's not, you guys have the right to do an inspection, and it's not uncommon that sometimes people may come back. I just want you to know, in speaking to the seller, they seem to be like really, really adamant that they're probably not going to do much. At the same time, you guys do what you need to do, and we'll work together as a team to try to, keep this together and get it to the closing table. And they're like, okay. So I'm just like, beep.
Yeah.
Then when they come back and I'm like, okay, I appreciate that. Depending on what it is, if it's legit, like say it's like a roof or something, like a legit thing, not like a pulling out of the sky sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it's like a roof. You're like, okay. And, I'm curious, because I know you're asking for 20 and, I'll do my best. At the same time, our job is to put together, not to keep it apart. Like, do you think if we were to perhaps maybe like split the difference, if that's something that we could put together? And they'll be like, yeah, and speaking to them, like, you do your best and I'll do my best. But yeah, I think we probably make that work. It's like, okay. So now I have some information to now when I go back into the hornet's nest and they're going to be mad, right? Because you're going to be like, yep, they did, as we mentioned, they have the right to do an inspection and they still may ask us for something. Now, in this instance, what came up in the inspection were some issues with the roof. Now, keep in mind that the only thing that they can't ask for like cosmetic things or things of that nature. It has to be like, structural or major heating and cooling systems or things of that nature. And what they did come back with is something that fits that criteria. It's structural, right? And it has to do with the roof. So this particular buyer or somebody else, it's going to be something that we have to deal with moving forward. Now, in this particular instance, they are asking, here's what came up, and here's what they're asking. And be prepared when you say, here's what they're asking, that they're going to freak out. And when they freak out, it's like, yeah, okay. And I certainly see where you're coming from. And what I'm aware of is we have a couple options at our disposal. And again, whatever you decide is okay. The first option is we tell them to pound sand. Nope, not doing a thing. Now, while I'm aware that that would feel good, I'm also aware with a high degree of probability, because we're aware of this, now in the seller's property disclosure, we have to disclose it. And the next buyer is probably going to ask us for something as well, right? So we can either deal with it now or deal with it later. And the issue is if we say no to them, there's two things I don't know with a high degree of probability. Once we put it back on the market, how long it would take to get another offer. Because it took us 65 days here. It could take 65 more or longer. I don't know. And number two is if and when we did receive another offer, if it would be any better. I don't know that either.
Yeah.
The second option is we can give them the full credit. Now, I am not suggesting that we do that alignment. And then the third option is that we could negotiate, right? Try to come to a meeting of the minds. Now, in these instances, my experience is the most reasonable kind of counter back would be to split the difference. Now, meanwhile, I already know because I spoke to the agent, right? So split the difference right down the middle and offer them that $10,000 credit. And then in doing so, we retain some money for you. They're getting a little bit of value for here. We don't have to worry about, dealing with the roof issue and somebody asking for more next time. And we can be, 30 days closer to being sold and complete and you being out to Texas. Now, whatever you decide is okay based on what you're looking to accomplish. Why? What do you think we should do? Now, they're either going to say something reasonable, unreasonable, or they're going to hem and haw.
Yeah.
They're either going to be like, yeah, Jose, I guess that makes sense. What would I net? You're like, yeah, you'd net this. Would that allow you to make this move happen? I think it would. It's not ideal, but like, just go ahead and do it. Okay, good. Or they're like, no, definitely not doing that. So that would require some more conversation, some more massaging, you know what I mean? Tell me again, motivation, like things of that nature.
And I think a lot of this conversation too, it even has to do with understanding the entire situation. So what I mean by that is that, like, let's say that I receive a request for repairs. The first thing that we do is we look at, like, okay, how many offers did we have on this property? Did we have one offer? Did it take us 65 days to get this property in escrow? Or did we have 10 offers?
Yeah.
And if we had 10 offers, the approach might be a little bit different.
Yeah, it would be different for sure.
And then what I would say is that's step one. Step one for me is, okay, like analyzing the situation and then maybe even reaching out to some of the other offers, if we had other offers, to see if any of them still have any interest. Hey, look, by the way, we received the request for repairs. The property, we're in contract at 880. Would you match the 880 and accept the property in as is condition? Here's a copy of the home inspection report, basically. That way you can review it and let us know if you would or not. Then the next conversation I have is with the buyer's agent, just like you mentioned. And then it would be something along the lines like, I may not even throw out like, hey, let's meet you halfway. My job and my goal is to try to set expectations as low as I possibly can.
Yeah,
So I
good.
may say things like, hey, Aaron, like, I don't know if you noticed this, but we were originally listed at 900. Obviously, that has nothing to do with your client. Then we dropped it to 850. Now we're in escrow at 800. So I don't know if you've ever dealt with a seller like this, but I mean, they're thinking like, hey, look, I already reduced it $100,000. Like, I don't have any wiggle room for any repairs. Just to recap, like, when we went into contract, he did mention to me like, "Hey, look, this is one of those situations where they're either going to buy it in as is condition or they're going to cancel the deal." So I just wanted to reconnect with you and just kind of see like, "Hey, look, obviously I'd like to keep the deal together, but are you guys willing to buy it in as is condition? That way we can keep the deal together." And I'm saying that just to kind of feel out the situation. And I'm either going to get a couple of different responses. One response is I'm going to get is yes, I think they knew that it was worth a shot, so they're just kind of giving it a shot. Like I told them like that, hey, look, it's not a reasonable expectation. I'm like, great. I know that if the seller comes back with something very minimal, they'll take it. Or they'll say something like, look, Jose, they've already asked me to start looking at other properties. And to be honest, like these are like really big deals for them. And unless we address these things, then they're likely going to walk. And if they say that second response, or if they say something along the lines like, hey, look, they're already exploring the cancellation, I had to like beg them to come up with some sort of request for repairs just to try to keep the deal together. I may say something along the lines like, well, look, obviously knowing the seller's position and where they stand, what do you think would be a number that your client would do in lieu of any of the repairs? And I'm putting it back on them and them being like, well, and you'll get a couple different responses in those instances. In some cases, you'll get people that are like, I don't know, just come back with something. Or in some cases, you'll be like, look, I think that if you come back to them with 8,000, I think that they would do it. And then I might throw it out again. I'd be like, well, what if they came back with like 3? Like, no, I think that would be a deal breaker. Now I have something to go back to my
Mhm.
client. And now with my client, I can go back to him and be like, hey, look, like you have this is what they're requesting. Obviously, you have 3 options. One, you can accept. I don't recommend doing that because I believe I can get them down in terms of the repairs. 2, you can counter, or 3, you can reject. I don't recommend rejecting. Most of our clients either accept or counter. What would you like to do? Well, I was thinking about doing X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. And in some cases, the client would be like, well, look, I reviewed it. I'm willing to do 10. And I'm like, hey, look, I actually think I can get it down for a little bit lower. I actually think I can get it down to 8.
Yeah.
If you, or in some cases, they'll be like, hey, I like to come back and offer 4. And I might say something to him like, hey, look, like, is there a way that just between me and you can give me a little bit of leeway, like maybe like a higher credit? I'll try to negotiate it for 4, but also give me some wiggle room in case I'm not able to do that, and come back to him with a larger number to be able to keep the deal together. And then if they're like, look, I'm not doing anything, that's when I'm having the conversation around like, look, I actually talked to all of the other agents that are that submitted an offer. 2 of them have already bought something else, and the other one's not willing to buy it in as is condition. They still would want their inspections. Not only that, but like I've looked at some of the recent sales that have been on the marketplace, and I don't know if I can do any better for you. And I
Yeah.
don't know how long it would take. So I know it's not the ideal number for you. At the same time, I would strongly recommend that we come to them with something, basically.
It's good. He knows what he's doing, ladies and gentlemen. You
Same
don't
thing,
sell 150 homes a year by accident.
right?
Yeah, dude. So I think this is good. I think it's helpful and useful to people. That's what we're going to continue to keep doing. For those of you who need some help and you want some help for free, check out the school community, Aaron Novello School. It's free, and we'll get you plugged in. So I look forward to seeing you soon, brother. We're doing this leadership retreat in
I
Sedona in a
know.
week. We're going to get to
I
hang
know.
out and spend
It's
some
gonna be
time
crazy.
together.
Yeah,
I'm
it'll be
excited
fun.
about it. So be great, bro. Talk soon.
Be prepared to get balled up, just by the way. We're gonna find a court and just be prepared to lose.
You're better than that, bro. Don't do that. We're gonna have camera people there. You know what I mean? All
Later,
right.
bye.
Later.